Okay. Hello, Nate.
Well, hello.
Hello and welcome to this Media Mastermind Keynote. I'm Kate Bulkley, and I'm here with Nate Hayden. Nate Hayden is the VP of AOL's Original Content and Studios, and he also runs AOL's Branded Entertainment Group. For those of you who are looking at your printed program, this is not Dermot McDormick. It's not, right?
I look a lot
This
like
is not
him, but
Dermot
it's not.
with a makeover. No. Dermot unfortunately left AOL a couple of weeks ago, and now Nate reports directly into Jimmy Mayman,
Who was on this stage a couple
who was
days
on
ago.
this stage a couple days ago. And Jimmy, of course, is the head of all of AOL consumer brands and content.
Correct.
So
Correct. He is my boss.
it's your boss, exactly right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Nate because he's not in the printed program, because he's not Dermot. So let's start there. So in your role, you oversee original programming, branded video creation for AOL's brands that include the Huffington Post, Engadget, TechCrunch, and most recently, Go90, which of course is the Verizon brand. It's the mobile app that Verizon has launched. Now, Verizon, as you may recall, is AOL's new parent company. So we'll talk a little bit about Go90. For those, the other thing that you do is that you came to you do content and studios. So it's important. It's content, studios, and branded. Those are really the three. You came to AOL in 2013, but you're an old TV hand, which I always like to say. Nearly 2 decades of experience in the television industry. You were a producer, you're a director, development executive, nearly a decade at MTV, yeah?
Correct.
You also worked most recently at VP of Development at Fremantle Media.
That is correct.
And at AOL, you've developed and supervised a broad slate of things, and I'm just going to mention a couple of them. You've worked on some things with James Franco, Sarah Jessica Parker, Jared Leto. You did Park Bench with Steve Buscemi, Tiffany Shlaine, The Future Starts Here, and most recently True Trans, right?
Yeah.
With Laura Jane Grace.
Yes,
Yeah.
which
and
nominated.
these were nominated, right, for Emmys?
Correct.
Okay. And Nicole Richie's Candidly Nicole, right?
Yep.
That became a cable series on TV at
On
VH1.
VH1,
Okay.
correct. Yeah,
so,
2 seasons.
So
yeah.
you've sort of understood the crossover back and forth. All right.
I sound really busy. That's fascinating.
You sound very busy, but that's good.
I'll take it.
So before we get into our chat, would this be a good time for you to cue up the sizzle reel?
Yes, absolutely. So I've got a reel that we can take a look at that's actually from earlier this year at our Digital Newfronts. It'll give you an idea of kind of the content that we rolled out this year. So we can take a look.
Okay, roll the clip. Wow. I mean, there's a lot there.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say you'll get a good scope there kind of on the stuff that we have done for years in our original content, and also starting to see some of the formats we've shifted into, a little bit more live, a little bit more daily content. So
the thing is, because you have so many brands, you know, from HuffPo to TechCrunch and now Go90, I mean, you've got a lot of different, let's say, venues to put stuff and a lot of different audiences and different sensibilities. So that's kind of fun for you as a programmer.
Yeah, from the content standpoint, it's great because we have existing brands that already have these fantastic voices. Like Huffington Post is obviously a really, really well-known brand. And so to start aligning not only news-like content for them, but to also take that voice and branch it out into even broader and bigger concepts, documentary-style concepts, but then across all the other brands, from TechCrunch to Engadget to Makers to Cambio, all kinds of different voices, so exciting from the content perspective, but also a built-in endemic audience that we can tap into right out of the gate.
Right, right.
Which is great.
So Verizon, let's go back to that for a second. So Verizon's a big wireless company. They bought AOL.
Correct.
They have just launched this Go90 thing, which is their mobile app targeting millennials. How is this changing what you're going to do in the content?
In content-wise?
Part.
Well, a couple-fold. One, as I kind of pointed out, we'd already started to evolve content a little bit within my originals group, but I think that one of the biggest
short
things...
form, you mean?
Yeah, short form and also genre-wise. We pushed into music and sports for one of the first times in the 3 years that I've been at AOL. And with Go90, I think, and with Verizon in general, I think the first thing out of the gate isn't even necessarily a content piece that's interesting for me. We immediately multiply our distribution. We're on, right out of the gate, about 150 million handsets. That app will be available to Verizon customers with a slate of content that's exactly the same in some senses as what a non-Verizon customer will get. There will be exclusive content available on Go90 just to Verizon customers, but that's just such an exponential increase of our distribution. Within content, yes, absolutely. We are going to be leaning a little bit more millennial for that, a little bit more, there's actually going to be a little bit more sports content on Go90. But I think in general, it just really adds, like I said, another voice to that slate of groups that I was already programming for. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't change it drastically, to be totally honest.
What's interesting about it is, you know, a lot of people think that mobile means shorter, it means less premium, it means not very good, basically. Right. So you would counter that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
okay. And does it just mean short? Does it just mean 2 minutes? I don't know.
And that's actually a very interesting point. I think that's one of the things that was fascinating for me when I get into that mobile content conversation. Knowing what's going to be rolling out on Go90 across the coming year, it is everything from short form, some daily, some live, but it also does, in new form, I believe, is actually, the announcement's already out, they're doing 6 scripted series. Yep. So it is everything from really kind of immediate and accessible, almost vlogger-style content. I think that's why mobile content gets a bad rap. But I think that the reason that engages with an audience is because it's so immediate, there's a very direct connection. But I think that knowing that my niece, obviously great example, 14-year-old niece, she will consume 30, 40, 50 minutes worth of content within one episode. So we're not limiting ourselves either to format length, but definitely not to the level of the quality of content. So premium is absolutely still going to be a piece of our mobile strategy.
By the way, why is it called Go90?
It's a very good question.
Is it?
Anybody out
here
know?
Do you know the answer?
I'm stalling. I'm seeing if anybody else knows. So what Go90 refers to is, again, speaking to my 14-year-old niece, they don't watch content this way. They go 90 degrees with it.
Oh, come on, really?
To watch content this way, yeah, absolutely.
So it's about
just
turning the phone.
Exactly,
okay.
90
right.
degrees. Just walking around the streets here.
I should be in branding. Gosh, I didn't even get that. All right. All right, so let's talk about the content team. Now,
sure.
Verizon had a content team, right?
Correct.
I mean, they put the whole UI together. I think these people actually came from OnQ originally. So what are you going to do about these guys?
So
how big is that team?
What I think, we are in the process of kind of figuring out how those two families will merge together, but I think there's going to be a pretty great marriage there because their team has done an amazing job of acquiring content and creating deals and licensing content to fill out the entire Go90 slate, but we will marry that with kind of our original development and current group that resembles actually a lot like a traditional broadcaster has. Okay. So to marry those two groups, I think, is going to be relatively seamless, and I'm actually excited about what we're going to do.
And you're going to oversee all these people?
Jimmy and myself.
Okay, all right.
But it's still being worked out. Don't write my job description yet.
Okay, okay. When you look at, well, let me ask you one question before that. Mm-hmm. When you look at, you're here at MIPCOM. Yeah. I mean, you starting to work more with, let's say, more traditional television film producers, or is it most this sort of influencer type group that you're more interested in?
Well, it's interesting because there's a couple different pieces to this. One, as far as our production companies that we work with, I'm working with the same production companies that I would have worked with in my previous incarnation in television. So all of the production companies that I tapped in the unscripted world there, I've reestablished with in the digital space. When it comes to talent, it is also, as you see, some very major name talent, but what we've also over the couple years come through, it's a realization obvious to the rest of the digital world, is that celebrity value is very much equal now by influencer and social influencer value. And so there was a couple examples on our previous slates. Candidly, Nicole, we went to Nicole because of her 4 million Twitter followers. Yes, she's a name, but also like that social cachet is massive. And then I think a great example.
But it's not just cachet, she also can activate her audience, right?
I mean, it's a built-in marketing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of like you don't have to spend the marketing money just based on a piece of the kind of marketing muscle they bring themselves. Another example from a previous slate, a YouTube talent, iJustine, has a massive YouTube following, and so we partnered with her to do a tech-based show. Started off as wearable tech, but she brought a massive built-in audience to that series, and to the point where it was one of our best performing series on 2 slates ago, renewed it for a 2nd season. So she's a great example of kind of bringing that, those eyeballs directly to content built in.
Okay, so So what would be a good example of something that you're doing for, say, I don't know, Huffington Post? I mean, I think you have a clip that relates to this.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we're doing a show that I'm actually super excited about that launches on the 15th. It's a show called Now What with Ryan Duffy.
Okay.
Ryan Duffy.
Explain who Ryan Duffy is.
Yes, of course. Ryan Duffy worked as a correspondent for Vice for about the last 10 years. Was on the Vice HBO series, on camera, and also a journalist who's got a really great voice. And we sat down and started developing a show that he kind of brought he would never say this himself, but his experience at Vice was in that they have a tendency to swoop in and look at an environment and say, this is an incredibly messed up situation,
right.
Here's how bad it is, and then they pack up and they leave. And that's the end of the story. Okay. So he consistently, and I think as a viewer, you're left with the feeling of, all right, well, wait, now what? Like, explain to me what happens next. So Ryan will, in each of these episodes, go into an area where there is a problem, where there is a situation that needs to be fixed, and really kind of tap into something that's working, but through the eyes of the person who is actually executing it, which is a tone and a theme that matched up beautifully with the Huffington Post, because they're very much escaping the if it bleeds, it leads theory of how to program news. Yeah. So that was kind of a natural partnership. Yeah. Super excited about that one, and you're correct, we do have a piece of tape on that.
Should we watch that now?
Would love that.
Let's watch the clip, please. So that's coming out October 15th, is that what that says? Now, where would that come out? Where would that premiere? On HuffPost?
So that will premiere on Huffington Post and be pushed out throughout the rest of our network. And it's, again, speaking of kind of the benefits of having this great suite of content brands, we can promote across those networks as well. So TechCrunch will support it, Engadget will support it, AOL.com will support it. But its home will be. So
you almost got sort of a network of these sort of online brands that can actually push around content. It's almost like a channel environment where you can signpost, you can promote, you can do lots of different things. Does that mean that, that more brands are in the offing? I mean, is that the idea that you get more brands? I don't know if you know about that, but in other words, is the idea to build up more brands so you can have more channels? Or maybe from your perspective, is it about making content that always works on more than one brand, if you see what I mean?
Yeah, no, honestly, I do. Yeah, I do see what you mean. I think, well, one thing that I think is interesting about it is that it is kind of this fusion of, like we've always said, if TV and the internet video had a baby, this was kind of where we're headed with it. And I think that, yes, do I necessarily program with the mindset that I can put them on multiple brands within? Not necessarily. I actually kind of look at it as I'm the parent network, and a la NBCU, one of our partners, that has a number of channels under its umbrella. I can nurture and develop content within each of those brands that fits within that brand, versus thinking of it more of almost from a sales perspective, where it's I've got to have two buyers for it. I think of it more of how can I customize for one of those brands.
That's interesting. What kind of pitches do you want to hear from these folks out here? I mean, what are you looking for? What rocks your world right now? What's the hot thing that you want?
So many things rock my world right now. I just love that.
Oh, do tell us.
No,
what rocks your world?
Right now, actually, I think one of the things that's been very interesting for me is unscripted will always be something, and I think in this environment I've learned it's called factual. Here.
Factual?
Yes, factual. That will always be something that we go after. I think one of the things that's extremely exciting right now is for Go90. We talked a little bit about this previously. There is, I believe, a potential there for, as House of Cards and Orange is the New Black stuck a flag in what was possible for content at Netflix in the VOD model, I look at this as what is the opportunity for us to take a new format, be it scripted drama, and stick a flag in what is possible within scripted mobile content. And I think that's a very interesting space to be playing in as I move forward, and I kind of look at what we'll do with Go90, but even potentially across my other brands. But that's kind of the conversations that I want to start engaging in at this point to think long term. And again, I never feel like that there is a reason to go toe to toe with Orange is the New Black or House of Cards, but what is the thing that can have that same energy? Because we all know everyone in the consumer world said, oh my God, I never could have imagined that Netflix would have done something of that caliber. So I think that there's potential there.
So you're telling me that you might be doing a very high profile, big budget.
That's the conversation.
Scripted for mobile, something or other.
It really is. What is the question being, how can we find that thing that is the wow new definition of drama scripted on a mobile platform?
submissions will be accepted from now.
To you, directly to you.
To me, no.
Yep, directly to Kate.
Can you imagine? So talking about unscripted, the Outspeak partnership we heard about on this stage earlier this week. Outspeak is this thing between AOL and broadband TV, and it's sort of like citizen journalism with a little bit more curation involved. Are you going to get involved in that as well? Because that seems to be a big project that Jimmy has in mind.
Yeah, honestly, that is something that was born of the Huffington Post, and I will be involved in various ways. And I think that it really speaks to on a larger scale for AOL in general, across all of AOL brands. A big piece of it is being open and open to really kind of tapping into the creators around the world. And that's a great example of it. And there's no better place than Huffington Post for kind of the way that the genesis of the new way of gathering news. And we've all seen that a lot of news breaks via Twitter, a lot of news breaks via Instagram, and we track hotspots via the tweets that are coming out of them. And that was something that early on I had even said, listen, Huffington Post is a great place to curate that and to evolve that. And so that's a beginning of that, and I think you'll see even more with Huffington Post, and I believe you'll even see that more with TechCrunch and across the other brands, of really tapping into an extremely active audience, and people are used to being a part of the conversation. And so I think that will only grow even beyond Huffington Post as well.
Let's talk a little bit about economics, because one of the issues that we always hear about is, you know, we have budgets in television that make sense, or budgets in film that make sense, but when you get into digital, they often fall apart.
Correct.
And you have to really shave your budget. You have to make it a lot cheaper, because you just can't raise the amount of ad dollars that you would want to do, or you can't get the right co-production, or whatever it is. How are you seeing that? Is that starting to change? I mean, can we start with saying, we've just seen this Ryan Duffy clip, so people know the quality of that. They've just seen a little clip.
Correct.
Is that budgeted at the level that would, you know, a cable channel budget, or is it budgeted at a digital? You see what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is kind of the fight that I've had to fight with, or not even fight, but the conversation that I've had as production companies grow into understanding what they can do for digital. And Ryan Duffy is an example of, if that content were blown out into a longer form, it's about going to be 8-9 minute episodes. We are still talking about a similar per minute cost as far as what we be doing in traditional.
Really? For like a cable channel?
It's getting to there. It's getting,
it's
yeah,
getting
absolutely.
There.
And
So
I
the
think
gap is closing.
The gap is 100% closing, and I think in conversations with production companies, and I'm sure conversations I'll have with more people here, it's shifting the model a little bit. Is it somehow using some of the content as a loss leader to work your way into digital? But a lot of the forward-thinking production companies have figured out this is a way to dip toes into something that is unavoidably going to be the future, and there is absolutely starting to become a meeting in the middle.
Okay. Right, so it's not just cheap stuff anymore, is what you're saying. Okay.
That's my quote. It's not just cheap stuff.
So like the new form digital, you talked about that. That's that 6-part scripted.
6 episodes
that's
scripted series.
So can you give us an idea of what that's costing, or per?
I don't actually.
You don't know.
I don't kiss and tell. I don't talk about budgets, but that is definitely like a good example of healthy budgets that we're seeing as we move into more content for Go90. And I think that being able to put more muscle behind things when you have deals like a Verizon, we can put a lot more resources behind production. So I do see across the board, across all of kind of the digital broadcasters, I see budgets starting to catch up.
Okay. There's a lot of talk in the industry about sort of owned and operated platforms versus, you know, other people's platforms, be it Facebook or, you know, whatever it might be, YouTube.
Right.
Where do you come? I mean, does that matter for you? I mean, as a content creator, do you worry about where this stuff shows up, and is that part of the economics? How's that figuring into your strategy?
Absolutely. As a content guy, I try to ignore it completely, but knowing full well that I can't. No, so our content, we of course prefer that our content stay on our network. It's much easier for us to monetize, but to be, as far as what's been going on currently, we consider Facebook a partner in a lot of senses. We have worked with them on a sneak preview for James Franco's Making a Scene.
Okay.
We also, Huffington Post, I believe it's the #1 social poster of video on Facebook as well.
Okay.
So getting our content out and across, and we've had our content we feature our content on YouTube, a large portion of it as well.
But is this mostly promotional? I mean, you're not running full eps.
There are full eps.
There are full eps.
Yeah, on YouTube traditionally we have run full eps there. It's been on a case by case, and also for the sneak peek for Making a Scene, that was a sneak preview of episode 1, and that was full episodes as well. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it sort of depends also on the content and what you're looking at.
Absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about branded
Sure.
content, because that's something you're also involved in.
Yes.
Now, that's obviously a growing area. The advertisers are very keen. The brands love it. They want to be inside the story,
Yeah.
et cetera. Where does branded content sit in your organization? Is it sort of over here on the side? Is it becoming more in the middle? Is it where you say they make the money and we try to do the sort of the wonderful vanity projects, the artsy stuff? Yeah, talk about that.
Absolutely, yeah. My group right now it's essentially 2 chambers under my umbrella. So they are. It's creative executives and development folks that are working on both original content and branded content. So we've got the same creative minds developing both types of content. And so one can kind of feed the other in a perfect case scenario. One example that I like to use is a couple slates ago, I did a show with Ellen DeGeneres and with Kevin Nealon called Laugh Lessons.
Okay.
Basics of the show was each episode a different comedian would sit down with kids and work through a problem in a kid's life by teaching them a comedic technique. Don't know how to ask the girl out for the dance, do a pratfall and get her laughing and then ask her out. Essentially boils down to kids say the darndest things, but great content. They had a great Rolodex to bring comedians in. Carnival Cruise Lines came on to sponsor that original series, and we could then, as they loved doing that original series, but we didn't integrate at all into our original series, so we offered them a branded series that took one of the comedians, George Lopez, and did a full branded series under the same umbrella called Laughs on Deck that was kind of a great example of those 2 things kind of cross-pollinating one from the other.
And they put that on their site, or where do they put that?
That ran on an AOL site, and they had usage of that content as well. So that was a great example, I feel like, of what I try to do with my group. Yes, I've got development folks, but we really, at the core, and I don't know how many people are doing this right now, and may know this pain and or struggle, sitting down with a brand and having the conversation, say, listen, what are your touch points and what do you want to get across, and making sure that the creative is appealing to a consumer, because consumers will watch great content, and they are more than ever okay to have some branding messages within that content, as long as the content is good first. And sometimes there's a little bit of a push and pull with a brand to make sure that the brand message is not necessarily being beat over the head and coming before good content. And so I think that that's kind of an evolution that area is really starting to excel at. I'm seeing more and more and more incredibly good branded content.
So you have the same kind of group looking at both. So it's not like, these are the goes guys and these are the other guys.
Exactly.
What proportion of your content is branded now? Is it like 20%, 80%? 50%?
I mean, honestly, I'm trying to think. Well, all I can say is I know that over the last year, our branded group has increased their throughput by about 30%. So a third, we've done a third more content this year.
Right.
But I would say we're probably doing equal, I'd say 50-50 within my group of original to branded content.
Right, interesting, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if I think you were here for the Facebook talk, and she talked about 360 and Oculus Rift, and there's all these new formats. Now, as a content maker, how interested are you in this? I mean, she obviously is very excited, and obviously it's almost a little bit like when Netflix put everything out in, 4K, it was sort of like this was one of their things they could hang there. It was House of Cards, but also, look at this quality we've got.
Yeah.
So, but as a content producer, I mean, are we there yet? When do you start producing this kind of content? Would you produce this kind of content given your outlets or not? It's
extremely exciting stuff, because being a techie myself, I'm absolutely fascinated by that kind of stuff. I think that I have always let content lead, and then when content dictates a technology, I lean into it. I think there's a part of me that's where my head's at right now. When the content begs that, I will absolutely lean into it. I'm keeping eyes on it. I also know that there was, I think we all can remember a little while ago when 3D TV was the rage, and everybody bought their 3D TV. There were even networks that teed up 3D only channels. But
I have one.
There you go.
I don't watch 3D content.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that once
there's not much 3D content out there.
That's exactly. That's why content, to me, if it leads, then I think it makes absolute sense. I think that showed, in that example, there was a void of content, and so those, whatever the 3D networks were that came along, they didn't survive, and that also was a hardware issue, because I think I personally feel like that it's harder. It's easier to go to a theater and put 3D glasses on than it is to sit in your home and put 3D glasses on. But again, my point being the content will lead, and I absolutely am fascinated by it. I just, when the content's right for it, I'll lean into it.
But you're not commissioning it right now?
At the moment, no.
No. What would have to happen?
Well,
you know, a lot of Oculus Rifts to be sold, a lot of...
Well, listen, honestly, the Star Wars content that I saw today, it started to make me think a little bit more about it.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
It was pretty cool.
Pretty cool. So you talked a little bit about scripted drama, and because, you know, down here at this market, it seems like everyone's talking about scripted drama. Yeah. And of course, it's one of the things that's really fueling a lot of these SVOD platforms, for sure, be it Netflix or be it whatever else people are talking about. You know, I don't think of your brands as being that scripted, although you said, you know, you're thinking about it. Talk a little bit more about that.
Okay.
You know,
yeah, no, it's something that it's funny, I say we haven't done scripted, but James Franco's Making a Scene he was remaking scenes from, iconic scenes from movies in a completely bizarre James Franco way. Okay. And so that was the beginning.
They would be a little bizarre, yes.
Yeah, he's a great guy, but a bizarre guy. So that was really us starting to dip our toes into scripted, and I talk about ways to kind of break the mold a little bit. That was a way for us to, and in economy that worked for us, start to dip our toes into scripted. Steve Buscemi's Park Bench, although a straight up interview show in some segments, there was also pieces of that were soft scripted. And so we really have started to nudge into that area. And I do see, like, Silicon Valley on HBO, I think is a show that would absolutely work as a TechCrunch show. Yeah. So there are places that I really do feel like that we are poised to sneak into it, and I think Go90 is already there, and I think a lot of what you're going to see on Go90 is a trend that I've also seen as well, is YouTubers and vloggers and social influencers who have always been passionate about scripted, but that hasn't been their medium. A lot of the new form projects are either starring or involved with YouTube celebrities, and they're transitioning over into scripted content. So it's definitely something that I think we're already just on the precipice of and about to step into, and I think that now that as we evolve Go90, and I'm super excited to see the data that comes in on viewing patterns and consumption patterns as we get into the first few months of the Go90 lifetime.
Actually, that'll be really interesting to get those kind of stats, because they'll have a lot of stats from those mobile users.
Absolutely.
And also, I liked what you said. You said sort of the talent will lead some of this. You know, the talent will cross over from doing whatever they've been doing on you know, the online media and maybe simple stuff, influencer type stuff in their back bedrooms, and they might be thinking, what could we do? And they will lead you as well into possibly scripted.
100%.
Okay. When you just as a final thought, when you look at sort of where you're going now, what's the thing that you think about right now that you're going to be thinking about in the next, I don't know, 6 months as your big? I mean, obviously integrating with AOL and with Verizon, with Go90, that'll be a lot of work. Yeah. But what's the thing that you're thinking about a lot? You know, is it like, ooh, I really want to work with this star? Ooh, I really want to make a big series or a...
I think one thing that we've talked about, and Jimmy may have talked about, but live has become something that's been very interesting for us. And so
he did talk a lot about live.
Yeah. And I think to me the thing I talk about, what's the thing within digital that makes them, within scripted, that makes the most sense for a mobile platform. But appointment viewing live is something that there is such a potential. And I've been meeting with production companies and taking pitches along those lines. What is the thing within live, the wow factor of, oh my God, I need to watch this, and it being unique to mobile.
Isn't that interesting? Because it's just like TV all over again. Because live is like the thing. That's the holy grail. If you can make a live show work, you get that huge audience. That's where you get the mass audience. So it's interesting that you're looking at live in a big way. Well, I'll be very interested to see what you come up with about something live that will work on mobile.
I'm very excited as well.
And also very interested to see how you integrate with Go90 and all the great thing you're going to come up with. So I hope you'll come back again and share with us what you're doing in, say, a year from now.
I would love that.
Right.
It's a pleasure.
Please join me in thanking Nate for being here and telling us about AOL Content and Studios. Thank you.